I love Halo. Let's get that on the table right away. I'm a Halo fan through and through. It's in my bones, in my DNA. I will never be able to shake that because it's part of me, part of growing up. Halo will never not be special to me. But what kind of Halo fan am I? Within a world where Halo has transcended the box that it was put in by Bungie in 2001, where it exists in multiple genres across its core games and side entries where they dive into humor while also telling incredibly emotionally rich stories, where do I fit? It's important to say because it forms how I feel about Infinite, the newest entry. How can I sit here and tell you what I thought, how it made me feel, without first telling you how I got there, how I felt before Infinite, how I felt back in 2007.
They let me pick. Did I ever tell you that?
My first Halo game was Halo 3. I picked it up after a friend recommended it at school. I was 11. Halo 3 quickly took my breath away, not just because of its standout visual style and art direction. By 2007 standards it was something special, and today it still holds true. I wasn't just blown away by the set pieces and action, the story, it was the experience of Halo. Something unspoken, something you can't quite put into words, but it's always there if you do it right. It's always there. The way the music picks up just at the right moment, the way you feel wonder and awe in the complex and detailed skyboxes or the larger-than-life environments with familiar undertones, but something more lurking just beneath the surface. The intriguing lore points and political structures of a universe teeming with life and an energy that exudes confidence and uncharted territory. Halo 3 for me was an experience I will never forget, and an experience that will be with me until the day I die. From Halo 3, I went back and explored what came before. Halo Combat Evolved was a bold start to a series, leaving a lot to the imagination, filling narrative detail only where absolutely necessary, but letting the player wonder, linger. And if you do that just right, in the right places, make you think for long enough, you're left with incredible moments that will be forever etched into video game history.
Listen!
What is that?
I don't... There! Mira! Hold still! Hold still!
Let him have it!
An iconic Warthog run, a diverse set of environments, level design that allowed for player choice and decision making, and freedom. All important freedom. But freedom in a space that told a story that was designed to take you through a linear progression of things to do, things to see, and an experience to be had. Halo 2 took things further in a lot of cases. Variety was upped, set pieces were more wild, and our main character, the Master Chief, was something else.
Permission to leave the station.
For what purpose, Master Chief?
To give the Covenant back their bomb.
Permission granted.
No longer was he cool because he was silent, now he was cool because he was cool. Throwing himself from a ship to drop a bomb back on the enemy was the perfect way to open the game, a perfect way to show who the Master Chief is. If Combat Evolved gave us a taste, made us want more, then Halo 2 was the whole dish, with Halo 3 as our dessert, and we ate it all. The original Bungie trilogy is one whole story. It's a masterpiece. I find it difficult a lot of the time to rank these three games because they're just perfect. I don't want to rank them. I don't want to say one is better than the other two because all three are Halo. Of course, Bungie did more than just the trilogy. We saw ODST, Reach, and the first Halo Wars, although that wasn't directly Bungie. But those aren't reflective of what a Master Chief Halo story should be. They exist and they're all marvelous, but they aren't core to the main Halo experience. And what felt core to the main Halo experience felt ever less present as Bungie departed and 343 Industries took over the brand. A brand once born from passion, creativity, and the wallet of Steve Jobs was now handled by Microsoft and given to a studio created specifically to make Halo, to keep it going without Bungie. The idea of that even today feels like a factory churning out products to make a profit, not coming from a place of joy or love, but a place of avarice. You can still see those marks today. With how much I adore Halo, nothing hurt me more than the launch of Halo 4. Playing it, I felt like I'd missed something. how could this be Halo? Where are the diverse environments? Where's the humor? Where's the lovable and simple art style? Where is Halo? Oh, there it is. It's gone. Halo 4, a lot of people remember as not as bad as we thought. It's a decent game, but I don't. To me, Halo 4 is still a beacon of what isn't Halo. The change in art alone is an attempt to remove yourself from what came before. The art wasn't outdated, as Halo Infinite proves, the art was identity. In taking away and transforming it into a diluted sci-fi decoction of metallic patterns, bright shining lights, overly intricate and overdesigned textures with an emphasis on grounded realism, you lose all the magic. All of it. All the character Bungie spent a decade fine-tuning, every emotionally charged character design, every important world-building aspect of the art is lost. Halo 4 becomes a Halo game only in title. They tried. I believe 343 tried. They just got it all wrong. But with that, they doubled down to move forward and go deeper into this new territory, to transform Halo from Halo into something else entirely, to remove the Master Chief from the spotlight for a completely new character. Master Chief was relegated to 3 missions in Halo 5, and for those he was in, he'd lost everything that made him who he was. Halo 1 to 3, you felt like, despite his helmet always being on, through the writing and the art design, you could feel Chief's character through his visor. In Halo 5, you can't. He's blank, he's empty, he's a shell of what he was, and it's entirely disappointing. The environments you move through are the same metal spaces. A few exceptions exist, but they're plagued by the same issues of Halo 4. Overdesigned artistic direction, generic sci-fi imagery, nothing that says Halo. I felt lost. I felt betrayed. For years, I decided I wasn't a Halo fan, that I was done, that it was over, that Halo was dead to me. But then 2018 rolled around, and I tuned into E3.
Okay. What are we doing here to start off then? What is this? Halo? Oh! What is this? What is this? Oh shit! Halo Infinite? Is this like a Halo 6? What does this mean? That reveal though of the Master Chief helmet was so sick. That fucking reveal, man. Like we don't know anything about the game, but that shit was awesome. Seeing the Master Chief helmet like that, man, that was so good.
I was quite honestly stunned. Upon seeing that helmet, the classic helmet, all of the emotions came flooding back. Emotions I thought I'd lost for Halo, they weren't gone. I still love what I love. The joy that Halo brought me is forever part of who I am, and I felt it all again in that moment at E3 2018. I didn't believe it. The art was back. The identity of Halo was back again. The music was there. 343 finally got it, and it would only get better.
Next holiday, we will launch Project Scarlet with Halo.
Oh! Yes, let's see some fucking Halo. This is Halo? What the fuck? What is going on here?
Can you say see you?
Oh jeez, he's been stuck on there for ages. Please get saved by Master Chief. Come on. Where the fuck is the Master Chief? Come on, give us a Master Chief.
This is UNSC Pelican Echo 216. Can you hear me? This is UNS.
Oh! There he is. Oh, he's got the... Oh, look at his armor! It's Master Chief. It looks so fucking good. It looks so fucking good. Oh, it's... Look at that. That's him. That is fine. Look at... Oh my god. It looks just right. Oh, look at him. He look... Fuck yes. I'm so... Look at that art style. It's so fucking beautiful.
We lost everything.
That shot is fucking gorgeous.
There's nothing left for us here.
Oh shit.
We need to run.
No, we need to fight.
Oh, it's so fucking good. Oh, look at him. Oh, yes. Yes, Holiday 2020, that fucking soundtrack. Oh, Halo. Oh my god, that was so fucking good. That was so fucking good.
I was awestruck. Not only did it look like Halo, it felt like Halo. The music cutting in at just the right moments, harkening back to the original trilogy. A Halo ring as the setting, the simple yet elegant art style, Chief's character, it was all back. And I had shivers. It got me, it reeled me in, and I was on board. It wasn't all sunshine and rainbows though. There were a lot of issues before the game came out. We saw delays, we saw gameplay reveals that were less than ideal visually and structurally. Halo Infinite was rocky for a long time. I felt concerned about its direction. Open world? I felt concerned for the gameplay. A grapple hook is a big new addition. Could it come across as a gimmick? Change is scary, it always is, especially when you have history with something that has a particular identity. Changing things can sometimes go wrong. You can lose your core identity somewhere along the way, and we saw that in Halo 4 and 5. Was Infinite going down a similar path? To lose what it meant to be Halo with a nice reskin to pacify old fans? Or was there something more, lying just beneath the surface? The answer is yes. They got it right. Now, if that's all you needed to hear from me, then you can leave. I really like the game overall, that's how I feel. But if you want to hear my breakdown of the whole thing, gameplay, story, world, multiplayer, the future as a live service, then stick around. We're gonna get very detailed. I'm going to be delving into spoilers, but only during the story segment of the video, so feel free to use the timestamps in the description to navigate as you wish, if you'd like to avoid heavy spoilers. Halo Infinite bridges an important gap between old Halo and new Halo. And when I say new Halo, I don't mean Halo 5, I mean Infinite. There's a lot going on in this game that's brand new, but it never feels like a departure from Halo. The core elements of what made Combat Evolved so strong stand out in this game too, but they're taken to new places, so it's not so much of a loss of identity as an exploration of that within a different context. The idea of freedom so heavily present in Combat Evolved has never been more present in Infinite. The wonder and awe that comes from being on a Halo ring so familiar to us yet so alien is something that is inherent to Halo, along with the sandbox of a Halo experience. Halo 4 and 5 put us on rails. It made things too perfect. That might sound like I'm praising those games, but I'm talking about how they were built. It didn't really allow for any creativity or leeway in the movement or general gameplay. Everything just worked a certain way. It was rigid, unmoving. Everyone did everything the same way. In Infinite, you're really free to do crazy shit. The use of music is very thematic of how they represent old and new. From the way it blends melodies of the classic Halo trilogy tracks to how it weaves in new ones that feel born from the ashes of Halo 3. The music is usually used well. It can trigger at random points when exploring, and it does wonders to ground you in the space. The story also has music used throughout its entirety, and it rarely falters. There are standout scenes like the one very close to the start that was also used within a trailer.
Hello, Master Chief. I'm Cortana.
Together you become our newfound hope. Together, you become our key to humanity's survival. She will do anything necessary to make sure that your mission is accomplished, even if that means sacrificing herself, or you, to accomplish it.
What happened?
Capturing the emotion behind the scene and pushing that feeling onto us. Nostalgia, reflection. There are also odd moments as well where the music can sometimes feel incredibly out of place. I don't know why this piece is playing here, it's really not that cool. The music makes us remember and the visuals take us back. Halo has never looked more Halo. I do believe in a lot of cases this is probably the best the series has ever looked. Don't get me wrong, I love elements of CE that have yet to be topped, and Halo 3 had some wonderful environments, but there's something about Infinite that to me feels like the beginning of Halo dialed up to 1000, and they clearly put their all into making it feel visually representative of the franchise's past. For the most part, it looks beautiful. From the vistas over mountains to lakes and sunsets, it looks stunning. There are times it can look a little bit muddy and janky, especially when you get these odd moments of pop-ins, but it's usually really nice looking 99% of the time. Forerunner structures have never looked better, and I can say that with confidence. Everything about them is imbued with the vibe and intrigue of Halo's original trilogy, with them being inspired by different parts of each of the games. We see the dark corridors and dimly lit rooms with vast open spaces that were shown to us in Combat Evolved. We've got the golden and shiny surfaces with big beams of light that feel very much inspired by Halo 2, as well as the doors and the patterns and the details of Halo 3. Infinite captures it all and blends it superbly. Walking through Forerunner buildings was always a joy. Oh shit, it's one of those doors! Oh, it's one of these side rooms. Oh my god, it's one of those things! It's one of those! Let's go! Yeah! Not to mention the fact that you have repeating rooms. In any other context, I'd groan and complain, but here, not a chance. Halo Combat Evolved, due to limitations in tech, had to repeat a lot of Forerunner interiors. You'd be moving through similar rooms in different orders, and even though it was a limitation of the hardware, it defined what Forerunner buildings were like in the lore. Lots of the same rooms interconnected, like a modular system of factory-built rooms. Infinite does this too. Whether it was intentional or not, I can't be sure, but it captures the exact same vibe that the Forerunner structures give off in Combat Evolved, and for that, I admire it. Talking about new things, however, Halo Infinite does a single continuous camera shot in this game, similar to God of War, and I don't like it very much. I get what they were going for, but it makes it all feel a bit too contained. I like the way the close-up shots, the cutaways, the interesting camera work could make the older Halos feel different across scenes, that they could have the tone and the story be represented by the camera movement or the choice of shots. They're much more limited in this game, and it also affects the heroic Chief moments too. In Halo 3, the ending sequence has various cuts showing Chief and the Arbiter and Cortana scrambling to survive the destruction of the ring. In Halo Infinite, you just have the camera rotating around Chief, and it has a lot less gravitas than quick cuts would have done to show engaging action. I do, however, really like that the weapon you're holding prior to a cutscene will be the weapon you're holding in the cutscene itself. It's a small detail, but it's very much immersive, and something I hope they continue to do, even if the continuous camera shots don't return. I feel like I'm losing a bit of structure here, flitting around from thing to thing, so let's move on. There's a lot more to talk about. After the opening of Halo Infinite, which we'll talk a bit more about later for the sake of structure, you're introduced to the world, the sandbox that you'll be playing in between main missions. Zeta Halo. Zeta Halo is the only ring left over from Forerunner times. The rest were destroyed and rebuilt by the Ark. Zeta Halo is different. Zeta Halo is ancient. The perfect setting. If you're going to let me explore a ring, let me explore this ring. But how does it actually function as a play space? Well, it's somewhat akin to like Batman Arkham City, Metro Exodus, or even in some cases God of War. It's Metroidvania in its approach, and that term has become incredibly overused these past few years, but it's an industry term now for half open world, half linear. It doesn't pull off the true Metroidvania style the same way Batman or God of War does it, in that the areas aren't locked off until you have greater gear, but it does do things in a similar way. The world itself is open and able to be traversed at your leisure. Main missions take you out of the open world and into a linear mission, only to then spit you back out into the open world until you decide to head again to a main mission. If you're going to do Halo open worlds, then this is the true way to execute it. The world isn't cumbersome, it isn't full of fluff, it isn't even the core focus of the game. It exists as a sandbox for the player, somewhere to explore, somewhere to complete tasks, a place to do extra things and to have fun, which, after all, isn't that what video games are all about? They do a wonderful job of setting the stakes, of giving you a reason to do things on the ring. I was afraid before the game that the open world would exist for the sake of it, like it does in many a Ubisoft game of recent years, But that's not the case here. The open world feels justified, it feels like it has a reason to be, it even worked on me a second time. After coming to know the Banished, to know what happened to the UNSC, to learn of the dead Spartans and a war lost, I felt a drive, a yearning to do what was right, and when you're led out into the sprawling forests and grasslands, I want to go off, I wanted to explore, and I wanted to fight. I'd say that's a good job as any for making the player feel like the world is justified, wouldn't you? The Banished distinguish themselves from the Covenant in a wonderful way. No longer are we fighting religious zealots or prophets with a grand plan. We're fighting warriors, we're fighting champions of combat, a military force of disgruntled Banished Covenant soldiers, hence the name. And it's a good job they're such an engaging enemy force because you're going to be fighting them a lot. After spending Halo 4 and 5 fighting Promethean after Promethean enemies that may as well have been just lumps of metal, taking 500 bullets a go, it's incredibly refreshing to be fighting visually interesting enemies with engaging combat patterns. The enemies don't take many shots to take down, especially well-placed ones, but they do pack a punch when they come at you, especially when grouped together. Brutes have several different enemy types, from the ones that charge at you full force to the ones that pack a punch with powerful weapons. You have the elites, different classes means different things, distinguished by their clear armor colors blue, red, white, and yellow. Never has an elite with active camo been as terrifying as they are in Halo Infinite. Watching them skulk into nothingness as they hunt for you, only to appear a moment later inches from you, cutting you down, elites have returned to their rightful place in the Halo enemy roster. Sniper Jackals will have your head spinning as they gun at you from their perch across the map, hitting you with relentless fire, causing you to take cover and reevaluate. And there are grunts of many different types, some carrying heaps of weapons for their Banished comrades, the classic plasma grenade suicide grunts charging you at close range, and now grunts with overshield so they stand a chance against the might of the Master Chief. Enemies have never been as fun to fight as they are in Halo Infinite, and that's truly a wild thing to say. After the boring and monotonous firefights of Halo 4 and Halo 5, it's a joy to see Infinite take things in the best direction yet. Moment-to-moment gameplay takes what it means to be Halo and transforms it into a system that is one of the best I've played from an FPS. The gunplay is solid, each weapon has its own feel and use, although it does feel like some important core guns have been omitted. The Spartan Laser, Magnum, Fuel Rod Cannon, SMG, Classic Shotgun, Covenant Carbine, just to name a few. I'm sure they'll add a lot of these down the line, but it feels weird for them not to be here now. The melee attacks are weighty and the encounters themselves feel organic. It's truly an evolution of the classic formula. Some of the improvements are the equipment. Halo 3 had equipment you could pick up and use, bubble shields, flares, mines, gravlifts, power drains, etc. Halo Infinite takes this system and makes it part of the core gameplay. Over the course of the game, Master Chief finds upgrades that allow him to carry more equipment. There are 4 kinds. You've got the drop wall, the threat sensor, the thrusters, and the grapple hook. They switch up gameplay considerably, but none more than the grapple hook. Something I thought could be a mere gimmick ended up being one of the most fun parts of the game. It enhances combat, movement, range of motion, and it adds to the Halo sandbox in the most appealing of ways, and it never really gets old. Using it to navigate up mountains or pull yourself across a room to take out an enemy, the grapple hook does nothing but bolster the Master Chief's arsenal. The overall moment-to-moment gameplay is what makes doing everything you do so much fun. But what are you actually doing? What is the purpose of Zeta Halo? The core and most attractive thing you can do are Banished outposts. It sounds mundane, it sounds boring, it sounds like Ubisoft filler content, but it's really not that at all. Banished outposts, of which there are 7, are all unique Banished bases that exist on Zeta Halo. They each have a different purpose. They each have different lore, from refineries to excavation sites to prison processing facilities to choke points on the ring. They'll all have something that gives them their own context. Chief and the weapon have unique dialogue about each to ground you in what you're doing, and each have unique layouts and objectives to complete. The moment-to-moment gameplay makes any skirmish fun, but what adds to these outposts is the fact they're built into their own mini-missions that seamlessly integrate themselves into the open world. They're simple, they're nothing incredibly complex, but the way that it's executed is really quite astounding. I found myself compelled to complete them and interested to see what the next one would hold. The next down from this would be the high-profile targets. There are a few dotted dotted over the area of the ring that we explore, and each have their own backstory and their own unique weapon, which you unlock after beating them, and they work as a nice objective to complete, with each target having their own lore. Reading up on them before diving into the fight adds some nice context. However, it is very similar to something like the assassination systems found in the newer Assassin's Creeds. Random boss enemies dotted around the map with a piece of text written about them in a pause menu. It doesn't work for me in Assassin's Creed because the central focus of those games should be, well, it should be assassinating people, meaning there should be more depth to any time you have to do that task. Halo, on the other hand, isn't about assassinating people, so having these targets to eliminate be a side thing with a small piece of text about each target works here. I don't expect it to be more than that in this context, and so for what it's worth, it's fun. There's also groups of Marines to save, propaganda towers to destroy, and collectibles to collect, of which all are incredibly boring and offer nothing more than a reason to move around the map. Let's not kid ourselves, the 15th time you saved a group of Marines, you'd already stopped caring. Of the collectibles, you have Mjolnir lockers for multiplayer unlocks, which is really nice to see, although the unlocks aren't really that cool. In Halo 3, you could get some pretty snazzy helmets for doing campaign things, and it'd be nice to see rewards integrated for doing specific challenges rather than just random lockers in the world. It's hardly the most rewarding thing. You also have your data pads, which fill you in on side characters and stories. The UNSC data pads give you updates on Lasky post-attack on the UNSC Infinity. We learn things about Halsey, Spartan Locke, and Blue Team, which is always nice. There are also special Forerunner sites which give you Forerunner related messages and lore, which I'm always a sucker for. Although I have to say it's a shame that not every Forerunner location was different. They're all just these old stone rings with some particles in the middle. And finally, we have the Spartan cores. There's a bunch of them all over the ring, and collecting them basically grants you a skill point. Now, thankfully, Chief doesn't have a skill tree, otherwise this would be a very different critique. Now, Chief can upgrade his equipment. Upgrades enhance what your different pieces can do. I mainly focused on the grapple hook for increased cooldown and an electrically charged line, and the shield core, which means you can take a few more shots before your shields break. I'm gonna be honest, I don't know why they did this. It feels like it lacks too much depth to be meaningful, while also getting in the way by adding too much complexity to a system that didn't really need it. Again, it works as a way to just make you go to map markers and collect things for upgrades you don't really need all that much. You're playing as a Spartan, you don't really need an upgrade system, although I'm glad they didn't go all out with armor crafting or something dumb. What does work for me though is the FOB system. Every time you do something on Zeta Halo, you're rewarded with Valor points. They don't do anything outside of increasing what you can do at your FOBs, which are bases you can liberate from Banished control. After doing so, you're able to call in vehicles and restock your weaponry. The more Valor, the better vehicles and weapons you have to call in. It's nice before jumping into an outpost to restock weapons, grab a vehicle and head into battle. And it seems there's nothing a gun goose can't handle. Or maybe try a Razorback with 5 Marines all armed with rocket launchers. The Banished won't know what hit them. The sandbox is a creative playground for you, and it's heaps of fun. That all said, the open world can get tiresome. The outposts are fun, but after that, you're sort of doing the same things over and over and over and over again. The positive is that the game isn't bloated to hell, so you could probably 100% the game and finish the story altogether in about a 15-hour period at most. The game really doesn't overstay its welcome, and for me, that's appreciated. In the age of open worlds that last hundreds of hours, a tight and easy game with a nice experience for 15 to 20 is welcome. Beyond welcome, in fact. Obviously, it isn't the entire ring that's open to you, that would be utterly insane. It's simply the part that's been broken up and is used for the story. A few pieces that are close together that act as islands, I guess you could say. That being the case, this is the only area of the ring we visit, which means the whole experience is one singular place. The reason I'm bringing this up is because older Halo entries prided themselves on having varied locations, distinct regions, even if the whole game was set on a single Halo ring like Halo Combat Evolved. It was all on Installation 04 Alpha Halo, however we travelled across many different parts of the ring itself, from the forest and grasslands like we see in Infinite to the snowy mountains, beaches and jungles, swamps and canyons. Halo Combat Evolved had a ton of locations for us to visit within Alpha Halo, and that added to the mystery and intrigue of the ring. In Infinite, however, we're isolated to the open world and surrounding areas we visit for missions. Therefore, there are 3 types of areas in Halo Infinite: forests, banished bases, and Forerunner structures. and that's all we get. Sure, in the open world space, there are slightly different areas. Sometimes there are more fields and less trees. Sometimes there are areas that are barren looking, but there's nothing that pops out as a different biome entirely. No snowy areas, no desert regions, nothing like that here. I assume those are things that we'll see in future campaigns, and simply due to how rocky development was, things had to be cut. This I understand, but it still comes as disappointing to see a Halo game with such a shocking lack of differing environments. To me, that's a staple of the Halo experience, but what we get here is nothing close to the older entries. Even Halo 5, for all its many faults, had more environments to show off than we have here. This is maybe Halo Infinite's biggest problem, and quite a glaring one for me. Not something that ruins the game, but something that truly holds it back as of now from being as good as what once was. That being said, with it being a live service, it's more than possible that in 5, maybe 10 years, what Halo Infinite becomes will be something to rival the Bungie trilogy, but I can't speak for that. As it stands, as a product right now to buy, it lacks that diversity and variety that appealed to me 15 years ago. Having it be just this small area, however, means that the visual storytelling is a lot more detailed than you'd find in an open world 10 times the size. You can find scattered remains of UNSC ships, camps that were used by Marines, or even a crashed Guardian in the distance from when Cortana was still threatening all living things in the galaxy. Nice elements like this help to add character and narrative depth to the world itself, which can be something forgotten by plenty of games on the market today. Talking of visual storytelling, another aspect is the way that you learn of the multiple threats that are on the ring. This is somewhat tied to story, but it's not really a core part of the plot that I actually want to discuss in that chapter of the video. You find Spartan corpses around the ring in different locations. In these moments, you can hear Chief processing and dealing with these losses, as well as the weapon picking up information and learning. It's a very nice detail and something that is not only character growth for our main duo, but it also gives the player context as to the threats of the ring. They could be around any corner. Someone who hasn't just successfully killed one Spartan, but a whole squad, and that's something you don't see often. Overall, it's a world that justifies its existence and gives you a compelling reason to explore it. It takes Halo somewhere it hasn't been before while sticking true to the core ideals of sandbox and freedom that framed the story of Halo Combat Evolved and the games that followed. The old style of structure is not something I'd want to see disappear, and I feel that although this open world works and the choices they've made to change the structure and gameplay complement this and bolster the experience, I would like to maybe see this style of game taken and pushed to a whole new level, but maybe not in a mainline Halo game. Halo is a franchise where we've had tons of extended media, a bunch of mainline entries, and a couple of RTS side games. This franchise, I feel, should be tapped into more in different genres without costing us the classic OG formula. I can't sit here and say that Halo Infinite should become a staple for Halo structuring, because I don't believe it should, but just because I think that doesn't mean I automatically think that it's bad. I don't. I think it's very good. I just feel somewhat conflicted. It comes at the cost of a diverse, rich, and varied linear mission-based story. I suppose a core reason I feel so split is because things had to be cut from this game. Maybe in the future we'll see the open world exist as a playground with main missions taking us to different places on the ring for more varied set-piece experiences. That would probably be my ideal. Keep the open world sandbox, it's fun, but just don't let the main story missions suffer because of it. And I guess with all that said, it brings me on to the main missions themselves. Expect a few light spoilers, and when I say light, I mean very light. Nothing story-based or plot-based will be discussed here. I'm mainly talking towards mission structure and areas visited. If you really want to know nothing, then ideally don't watch a massive critique on the video game, but you can feel free to skip forward. But I assure you this section is pretty much spoiler-free. I just felt I should give some warning because people can be pretty touchy when it comes to talking about literally anything, even if it's not a plot point or has any relation to the story, so fair warning for that. Halo Infinite has main missions, without a mission replay feature as of writing this, although it's planned, but they exist. Missions take you outside of the confines of the open world and funnel you through a linear level of enemies, scenery, and objectives. However, these are quite different from Halos of the past. Most of the missions here take place inside of various Forerunner structures, other than the opening, a mission towards the end, and the E3 demo bit. The rest are all centered around Forerunner structures and traversing their interior for various reasons. I've already talked about the lack of diversity, but it's ever present in these missions. There aren't parts where you take a pelican ride to a snowy mountain peak or take a detour to a sandy oasis, not even a dark, dingy jungle. The missions all take you to Forerunner interiors that exist within the open world area. Well, not every mission, but it's such a large amount that it might as well be. A lot of the objectives just consist of sort of doing things. That sounds incredibly vague and badly described, but I'd argue it fits the context quite perfectly. You find yourself spending an awful lot of time finding orange lights for which to shoot in order for a thing to happen. Or they have a habit of locking you out of doors due to a power outage, only for you to have to find a power seed to charge it back up, lying just around the corner. There's no challenge here, there's not any real depth, nothing to switch things up or change the focus. It's a very shallow way of designing levels, and were it not for the compelling narrative and engaging gameplay, I'd probably have a lot more to complain about. Thankfully though, those core pillars are strong enough that it keeps an otherwise vapid set of missions from being just that. Sometimes, however, there are sections that are just plain bad. Being sent across the map to do the same thing 4 times isn't really my idea of compelling level design or mission structure. Nothing can really salvage that level of Ubisoft mission design. 85 to 90% of the missions though are unique and have their own story context. The environments look wonderful and are a joy to traverse, the enemies are always fun to fight, and the story payoffs work. Something unique to playing main missions, however, are the vast array of boss fights you'll encounter. Before launch, I was concerned with the idea of boss fights being in Halo. Health bars for the sake of it, damage sponge enemies, but I was very wrong. The bosses in Halo all have different styles of combat and require different tactics, as well as them not needing a great deal of hits to take down. They just pack one hell of a punch when they come at you. Time your shots well or land the grenade throws and they'll be out for the count quicker than you can count to 10. There are some big challenges to come across. There are 2 brute enemies you come across halfway through the game, and by God, it took me far too long to take them out. Even on my second playthrough, I found myself struggling to pick one off from the other, avoid their attacks, and had to play it as tactically as humanly possible. The great thing is, it felt like a satisfying victory and not a frustrating obstacle. These missions are not the Halo missions of old. You won't find yourself amongst a military skirmish with alien forces. You won't be traversing a cityscape with a tank and then go on to fight a scarab decimating a company of marines. Nor will you be driving a warthog across snowy terrain onto Forerunner structures as they fall to pieces around you. They lack variety and they lack the detail of a more linear Halo experience that we've seen in the past. But what they lacked there, they attempt to make up for in story. And I'd say it manages pretty damn well. This is the point where we delve into actual spoilers. I can't possibly break this down, analyze it, critique it without doing so. Just in case you wanted to know my overall thoughts spoiler-free on the story, I like the story. I'd even say I love the story. It does things I really appreciate. It tells a new story using old and new characters to great effect, using elements from the Bungie era whilst not forgetting what 343 have done. I think it's a wonderful exercise in balance and subtlety through dialogue, camera work, and musical composition, in a way new to, yet not unfamiliar with, the Halo franchise's past. Now, before we get into spoilers, feel free to use the timestamp on screen to navigate away from here. Right now, do it. Story is core to Halo Infinite. The open world space exists, but it's not the focus. At least I never felt that it was. I love to look at, analyze, and break down narratives. It's one of my favorite parts of videos like this, so I can already estimate that this segment is likely the largest of the entire video, and rightly so. The story is front and center for Halo Infinite's campaign. The story drops us in with the same shot that ended Halo 5. Zeta Halo. In the starry blackness of space. But time has passed, it's clear to see as the camera pans up to show us a firefight. The UNSC Infinity is being attacked by the Banished in a very cinematic fashion, with the whispers of Cortana in the background, some of her final words to Atriox before she died. The whispers are established here and they continue as the game goes, becoming more intense as the narrative demands it. Cortana is not forgotten. Infinite lets you know that from the get-go, but it's something background, something that isn't right in the spotlight, at least not to begin with, and then we see Chief. After Halo 4 and 5, seeing Chief in his element gunning down jackals and brutes, using his grapple, being in control is something special. They show us right from the get-go, this is the Chief we remember. Atriox, however, manages to take him down, but not for long as Chief springs to his feet and holds his own. But after a stunning fight, holding down the ship as one man against an army, he's overwhelmed by Atriox, carried to the edge of the ship, and left to float in space, with nothing but the chip of his long-lost AI companion. No way back, no way out. Alone. And that's core to this story. Chief is alone. He feels alone. He feels his sole responsibility is to fix what he believes is his fault, and that he has no choice but to do it alone. This opening doesn't just establish core story points, it establishes the Banished as a fearsome force. The UNSC Infinity was said to bring the Sangheili to heel after the Human Covenant War. Nobody again would threaten humanity because of the might of the UNSC Infinity. The Banished took it down. They're formidable, they're powerful, and they're determined. The whole opening section that follows is superb. It's perfection. Fuck you, Kotaku. The Discover Hope trailer cutscene comes next, filling us in on the pilot, one of the core characters in this game. We see him in the moments after the Banished attack, and then 6 months later. His hair and beard are overgrown, he sits in a darkened pelican watching videos sent by his family long ago. It right away characterizes the pilot as someone with a strong will. Alone for that long it's a long time, but he's made it and manages to stay in high spirits even after that. He doesn't see himself as strong, but from his actions, he can be, and that's important for later. Following this, we're reintroduced to the Master Chief, a scene that I will never get over.
This is UNSC Pelican Echo 216. Can you hear me? This is UNSC...
The way the first note of his theme plays as the window is wiped clear to reveal him, his dialogue strictly kept to specific things, he's not talking till the cows come home, he's once again the strong, silent type we knew all those years ago. Not saying anything can often say far more, and that's core to his relationship with Cortana and the weapon moving into this game. The way he opens his closed fist to reveal the empty chip that once housed his ever-present AI companion, reinforcing that Chief is alone. As Chief steps into the cockpit, the Halo ring comes into view, the music swells just right, and at that moment, we are home. For the first time since 2007, we're going to step foot on a Halo ring as the Master Chief. The same wonder and awe I felt seeing one for the first time in Combat Evolved rings true here. Seeing that ring hanging in space sends shivers down my spine. But not just that, it's partly destroyed. How? Why? Who did it? All important questions raised by such a simple camera shot. There isn't long to stand around, however, as the ship is shocked and under attack. The line in the Discover Hope trailer was better than it is here. It could have been a new iconic moment, but instead they just use it to reference Halo 2.
We need to run!
No, we need to fight.
We need to run!
I need a weapon.
Yeah, it doesn't do the same for me. This sends Chief to find a way to get the Banished off their backs, and what better way to do that than to head into the ship with a single gun and aiming to destroy it from the inside. This time, Chief doesn't have a bomb to give back, so he has to make one himself. Heading through the Banished ship, destroying the core, sending the ship into a detonation sequence and racing out is an incredible set piece. Honestly, might be the best one in the game. Only thing that would have made it better was a warthog, but you can't have everything. Heading through the ship as it falls to pieces, the music empowering you as you go, using your grapple to navigate as fast as you can and escape with just a second to spare leaves Chief again floating in space. A sequence that solidifies Halo is back. And then we get the title card. One of the odd things here is that they tell you randomly that Atriox died. He didn't die, we find out in the post-credit scene, but it's just weird to me. Honestly, it confused me as I was playing it for the first time. I didn't even realize it happened, it was just so casually dropped into conversation, I missed it.
I wonder how prominent Atriox will be. Or whether we're just fighting Escharum in this game. Atriox is dead? Wait, Atriox died? Wait, what? When did Atriox die? He was at the... Wait, what? I thought he was like the big leader guy. When did they kill him? Wait, what? I must have completely not picked up on that because I just did not think that he would be dead. Oh shit, so Escharum took over from Atriox. That's so odd. How the fuck did I miss that crucial piece of information?
I'm not sure what value Atriox seemingly being dead actually adds to the game, but maybe you can tell me. Moving forward, the next core character we meet is the weapon. An AI sent to mimic Cortana and lock her down for deletion. Although that's not what happened. Cortana wasn't deleted by the Chief or the weapon, but she's gone. How? More and more questions fuel this story, and I love it. Rather than a story about fighting Cortana, we get a story about how she died. Where is Cortana? What happened? It's all shrouded in mystery rather than outright fighting against her forces. It's so much more compelling to be told like this. With this being a core focus alongside stopping the Banished, it allows the weapon and Chief to grow ever closer across the game while harkening back to Cortana at appropriate moments, whether for emotional weight or for the weapon to learn crucial information that leads to important character development. The main story of this game is one of subtlety. Taking up the Banished is the thing you're aiming to do, but in trying to do that, it enables the actual story of the game to take place. The core to this game is discovering what happened to Cortana and the weapon growing closer to Master Chief. Their relationship is central and the focus of the story, although what we're doing most of the time is fighting the Banished. I want to take some time to talk about each of the arcs we encounter in the game. As the game plays out, they're all woven together, but to discuss them and analyze them properly, it makes more sense to isolate each core plot. After forming our team of characters, we're off to fight the Banished, to free the ring, to win the war. All of the Banished are set up nicely, from Escharum at the start of the game being depicted as the sort of poster boy for the Banished ideology. They want to rebuild and probably fire the ring. Now that's not because they believe in some sort of great journey like the Covenant, they just want domination over everything. And you might be thinking, well, they'd kill themselves, right? And you'd be right were it any other installation, but 07 is different. It's one of the original 12 rings which could fire in a singular direction, meaning Zeta Halo can actually be used as a weapon of mass destruction rather than a self-destruction device. Having it in Banished hands is incredibly dangerous. None of this is actually said in the game, I'm just obsessed with Halo lore and I assumed this was the case. If you didn't know this, you didn't miss anything, I'm just a fucking nerd. If this wasn't enough, we get introduced to various members of the Banished early on through cutscenes. Some we fight right away like Miscellaneous, being the very first boss battle, but some are saved for later like Jaeger. I like that we get to know the ranks of the Banished and their higher-ups before facing them in battle. It's quite well executed and allows for some depth to enemies we face, even if only minor in some cases. The Banished plot is similar to the Covenant plot in that it exists to allow the games to happen. The Banished threat allows the Chief to have a reason to fight, a reason to go from A to B. It's not actually the core of the story, however, it interweaves with the actual core plot, which is that of development, growth, and mystery, but more on that later. As you take down various Banished forces and troops, you get to see the consequences of doing so. Escharum starts to panic, starts to lose control. I do like when games do this, as it allows for us to see how our actions affect the main antagonist of the story and ramps up the stakes moving into the endgame.
I thought I was going home.
There won't be a home if we don't stop the Banished.
You keep saying that. We're outgunned, outnumbered.
Now, core to the Banished storyline is that of the pilot. Later revealed to be called Fernando Esparza, his story is one of fear and guilt. We see him over the course of the game try time and time again to get Chief to leave the ring, to escape, to count his blessings and get gone. But he stays. Not because he's forced necessarily, but it comes across as him understanding the sense of duty that Chief wants him to feel. Esparza continues to cower and want to run until he hits a breaking point, one where he can no longer contain how he feels, and it all boils over. He isn't a pilot, he stole the Pelican and he ran. He just wanted to see his family. That's a human desire, panic in the moment. Chief understands. He kneels by Esparza, and what he says is crucial to the growth of Esparza, the weapon, and Master Chief.
We all make mistakes. It's what makes us human.
I'm sorry, Chief, but how have you ever failed?
I should have protected Cortana. Stopped everything from going wrong. I failed her. I will not fail you.
Chief. Wait. We're going to make it. We have to.
This is all I've got.
It's all we need. Our only way home is straight through the heart of the Banished.
We need you.
We can fix this.
Together.
Of course we can. Together.
I don't know what the fuck those brutes were doing though.
So, what's the plan?
Sort of ruined the moment, honestly. After a lot of other bits and bobs that we'll chat about when we get to that whole plot line, we find ourselves on our way to the House of Reckoning to stop Escharum and save Esparza. Now this is where the game lets you perform a warthog run. Kind of. It's a bit messy, not really scripted at all, and once the music picks up, you hit a blockade and you have to get out and then the music ends. I have no clue why this section couldn't have been a classic Warthog run, taking you a decent length through the enemy trenches, having you ramp over obstacles, letting the full track play before arriving at the House of Reckoning. It's a real missed opportunity, and it's not even a matter of me needing to get better at the game. Even if you flawlessly do this, you still hit the roadblock and have to get out, which stops the music. It's just a bit disappointing given the Warthog run is somewhat of a staple. It would have been nice to see it return properly. The House of Reckoning itself is a nice section of the game. I'm realizing now that I'm talking more towards the missions themselves than the writing of this section, but I couldn't really include this in the mission segment for fear of spoilers, so I'm doing it here. This segment pits the Chief against waves of enemies in an arena created by the Banished to instill fear in anyone partaking in their challenge. These are cool, challenging fights, and I really like it all. Not only does it give you something fun and unique to do, it also really showed you what Escharum has been doing, how many of your allies he's killed, the ships he's taken down and salvaged to create this arena to challenge the mighty Master Chief. You can see the Banished motivations on full display here. They want to strike fear into everybody's hearts and challenge the strongest of the opposing factions. Chief is one such figure for humanity, and all of this was done for him, to scare him, to be a power play. Escherum's stage to try and break Chief. The House of Reckoning also would work really nicely as a firefight map. You know, if you wanted to, 343. I mean, you don't have to, but it'd be pretty great. The boss fights that follow are really engaging battles. Jaeger is one that stands out, using the message from the pilot's family to draw you into his true test of willpower. Escharum has pulled out all the stops to test Chief. Heading into the specially designed area, Jaeger appears and cloaks himself. You have to navigate these dimly lit passages, hearing noises around you before he appears before you, jumping to take you down. It's easily one of the greatest elite portrayals in the series to date. They really make you feel like prey being stalked by a predator. The final battle, however, is one I really like.
Bear witness. Our story will become legend, told by those that survive you.
You can see what he wants, front and center. Defeating the Master Chief is a victory like no other. He enjoys the hunt, he enjoys being the champion, and that sets the stage for the fight to come. Which of course involves shooting orange things again, but that aside, it's a really nice battle of skill, timing, and some very basic mechanics that make it fun. It's nothing incredibly special, but Escharum is powerful. He packs a punch with his gravity hammer, and you need to watch out for it. Upon the defeat of this fearsome brute warrior, Chief shows him respect. Let's just watch the scene.
Tell them I died well.
I don't understand. You showed him respect. He was a monster.
Yes. But at the end, he was just a soldier. Hoping he'd done the right thing. Questioning his choices.
Now this scene I thought was strange. I think what Chief is doing here is speaking towards himself and towards Cortana. I think that's the point. It's trying to draw a comparison between his responsibility to stop Cortana and his failure, to which he's found a sense of closure as to not blame himself for it. And he's also drawing a comparison to Cortana, that she was a soldier trying to do what was right, questioning her choices. They keep using the scene, she would sacrifice you to complete the mission, showing that Cortana was a soldier doing what she felt was right. It works in this sense, however, I don't think it was earned for Escharum. He's very clearly an awful guy who did awful things, and moments before you entered the room was torturing your friend. He wasn't doing what he thought was right, he was doing everything for power and control. Maybe that's his instinct as a Jiralhanai, but I still don't think he earned what they tried to give him, this sense of moral ambiguity when the entire game they did nothing but build him up as a menace. Sure, Cortana destroyed their homeworld, but I don't think that justifies his actions. I don't know, this moment just didn't really work for me or resonate. It fell a tad flat. Maybe I'm misunderstanding it, in which case please do explain to me what the scene did for you in the comments. I'd love to understand the true meaning, or leave an argument to win me over. Maybe I'm just missing a core part of what they were trying to do, but I can only speak towards how I felt. The core story of this game, the entire point of its existence, is to build a clear and solid relationship between the weapon and the Master Chief using Cortana. They use Cortana's turn to the dark side, as well as the sacrifice Cortana made to grow both Chief and the weapon together and link them as a duo. It might be easy on the surface to dismiss it. Well, she's not Cortana, they're just trying to replace her, shoehorn her in, I don't buy it, but I really think it works. Sure, it's something of a fumbled story they've told. The concept of rampancy leading to the death of Cortana was an interesting story, albeit not executed to my personal tastes. Then going on to say Cortana is back and she's evil, only to skip over that entire battle and show us the aftermath, seems like a badly handled situation. But I believe what they've done is the best way they could have done it. To have Chief fight Cortana and arrive at a meaningful end would have been not only difficult, but it would have felt emotionally void in a lot of ways. Halo 5 Cortana doesn't feel anything like Cortana and is honestly somewhat irritating. By taking the route they did in Infinite, they can reconnect the player and Chief to Cortana while sending her off in a wonderful way, while giving her entire arc in the Reclaimer saga meaning. What she did has lasting consequence, and what she did has ramifications for the relationship between Chief and the weapon, but let's take a look at exactly how they go about it. After first meeting the weapon, we get a scene which shows the first time John and Cortana met, introduced by Dr. Halsey.
Hello, Master Chief. I'm Cortana.
This scene allows us as the player to be acquainted with true Cortana, the moment they met, a clean slate Cortana. We also hear the important words, "She will do anything necessary to make sure that your mission is accomplished, even if that means sacrificing herself or you to accomplish it." That is of course a core part of what happened to Cortana. She ended up sacrificing herself. Obviously at this point you don't know that, but on a replay you can see the seeds planted for payoffs later in the story. Across the game you get these little moments that remind you of Cortana and who she was prior to Halo 5. There's plenty of quotes from Halo 3.
Sacrifice me to complete your mission. Could you watch me die?
There's bits from Halo 4.
They'll marry you with another AI. They'll pair you with another AI. Maybe even another Cortana model if Halsey lets them. They won't be me. It won't be me. You know that. You know that.
There's the ending of Halo 4.
It worked. You did it. Just like you always do. I'm not coming with you this time. We were supposed to take care of each other. And we did.
all to refamiliarize you with Cortana as a character. Little drops of memory here and there, and the way they're planted into your exploration of Forerunner structures is wonderfully executed. It allows Chief to seamlessly discover these fragments of Cortana's memories as he explores the ring. Infinite is a story based in mystery, and a lot of the time mystery stories can be boring on a second go. But honestly, Infinite is not one of those games. On my second run through, I only noticed more. Little tidbits of dialogue or info that pointed towards the ending, showing Chief meeting Cortana for the first time after we just met the weapon isn't a coincidence. It's to show side-by-side comparisons of Chief meeting Cortana for the first time. The weapon, of course, being a copy of Cortana, a complete copy. There's direct references like when the weapon calls the echoes of Cortana just that, dust and echoes, a direct reference to the end of Halo Combat Evolved after the destruction of the first ring. Cortana said the exact same thing. There's subtle moments like this that show the player that Cortana and the weapon are more than just similar. They're the same. Which of course explains why John is so standoffish for the entire game. The story is one of him opening himself up again to the weapon. After Cortana, he's closed himself off. He feels responsible for what happened, and he doesn't want to fail again. There are multiple times he asks her, "Are you sure?" or "Is it safe?" Because he has to be certain that he's allowing her to do the right thing. He felt maybe it was his fault for giving Cortana too much of her own control, and that's the reason he lost her. He doesn't want to make that same mistake again. There's even a moment where he's ready to delete her. Multiple times he sets up a delete protocol, and one time even executes it. The weapon, however, stops him. After which she feels betrayed. Without all the information, she can't understand why John wouldn't trust her. She doesn't feel like she's done anything worth being untrustworthy. She doesn't even know what Cortana did.
What will it take for you to trust me?
Spider first.
Chief wants to. He sees in her what he saw in Cortana, and him shrugging it off, focusing on the mission, says a million times more than anything they could have done with dialogue. That's the Master Chief. Not knowing what to do with his emotions, it's perfectly characterized. After he tries to delete her the second time, they're at odds with each other. She is beyond frustrated that after everything she's done, after being kept around because of Chief, he still will not trust her.
You don't understand.
Try me.
Cortana.
He's gone.
Oh my god, that moment, fuck, it hits me every time. You can't see his face, but that look, the way he stops himself, stared, it says 1,000 times what anything else could, and that's how the Master Chief should be characterized. Through art style and through a vocal performance of reluctance. Chief, over the course of the original trilogy, relied on Cortana. They weren't just allies, they were a team. He came back for her when she was trapped on High Charity, and she stuck with him through thick and thin too. They had a bond. Closer than a soldier and AI, they were friends. Although Halo 4 tried to incorporate some weird pseudo-romance, this game takes it back to its roots. A friendship between a Spartan and his AI. Chief sees in the weapon what he saw in Cortana. He doesn't want to let himself trust her in case she does what Cortana did. He needs to be logical to stay on top of this. He can't let his feelings get in the way. But as he's learned from other experiences, Blue Team, an alliance with the Arbiter, losing Jacob Keyes, Miranda Keyes, Johnson, and Cortana, there's more than just stone cold facts to being a good soldier. Sometimes it takes emotion. Otherwise, what are we even fighting for? The turning point in their story is when the weapon learns that she's a copy. After learning what Cortana did, the destruction she caused at the Spartan 4 facility at Sydney, the Brute's homeworld, and then learning she's a copy of the one who did it, she takes responsibility. She asks Chief to delete her, as that's the right thing to do, and in that moment Chief knows she's not like Cortana. Not the Cortana who did those awful things, and that it wasn't because of him. In that moment he finds closure, and he realizes they were better together.
Whatever happens, save him. He needs you. You're all he has.
We do it together.
How can you trust me?
I don't. But I want to.
This moment is perfect. The payoff for everything we've seen and experienced, not just in Infinite, but in the past games, To me, the weapon earned being Cortana, and 343 didn't take the easy route. They didn't just say, here's a new Cortana model, she's exactly the same, happy days. They did the legwork. They showed Chief getting to know a new AI, to show them growing closer, to show his distance and concern, to show her taking responsibility and being ready to sacrifice herself, and then they reveal that she's Cortana. A new Cortana, if she'd never met the Master Chief. To me, it's superbly earned as a payoff, to see the Chief open up, to see her now question, how can you trust me, instead of why won't you trust me? The dynamic has shifted. No longer are they allies working together, now they're friends again. The Master Chief and Cortana. But it doesn't end there, because the weapon also gets Cortana's blessing.
They'll pair you with another AI. Maybe even another Cortana model if Halsey lets them. It won't be me. But you know that, right? But that doesn't matter. It's just another echo. She's right, John. Just another echo. Sorry, I'm messing with you. I just had a feeling that's what she would say. Do you see what I see? So much potential. I'm sorry. I didn't have long to plan this. A few milliseconds, really. I hope it worked out. Look at us. We just keep saying goodbye, don't we? But this isn't an end. It's a chance to make amends, to rectify mistakes. And it starts here. I was wrong. I thought that I could do this on my own. But I forgot that the whole point of all of this, the entire reason that I chose you in the first place, was that we were supposed to be a team. Perfectly suited, perfectly matched, perfectly perfect. In these final moments, I know what my last mission is. I need to make sure you two learn from my mistakes, become stronger because of them. I chose well, Master Chief. I really did. Now, it's up to you.
Cortana explains she was wrong. She realizes in her last moments that it can be used as a lesson. She opens her monologue with the words she spoke in Halo 4. They'll pair you with another AI, maybe even another Cortana model if Halsey lets them, but it won't be me. However, this time she adds on the end, but that doesn't matter. This isn't an ending, it's a beginning. A chance to right wrongs, a chance to learn from mistakes, a chance to make things right. Cortana's send-off is perfect. It builds on the original trilogy, it builds on Halo 4, and it doesn't forget about Halo 5. There are consequences, both negative and positive, because of what happened, and it doesn't get forgotten. But in her last moments, Cortana not only redeems herself through a sacrifice, she passes on an important lesson to a new Cortana, one who's earned the right to call herself that. This is honestly the best story I think they could have told post-Halo 5, and I'm so very pleased it turned out the way that it did. Multiple times during this game, I teared up and cried my eyes out the second time. Even editing this video, watching some of these scenes, they hit me just as hard because of what they mean, because of the emotional weight tied to them. Like I said before, a lot of mystery stories rely so heavily on the mystery aspect that on replays or rewatches, there's not a whole lot of substance. But the mystery is only one aspect of Infinite's story. This game tells a story of growth, companionship, teaching, guilt, and sacrifice, and one of moving on, moving forward, and that rings true in every part of the script. It's a whole story that is in the interest of growing characters, and that to me is exactly the story I needed. Now we're ready to tackle bigger things on a larger scale. Halo Infinite does a lot of setup, bits and pieces of plot for future campaigns to come. A core piece of the setup is with the character of the Harbinger. Although the Harbinger to me is sort of a minor character, her purpose in the plot is anything but. I originally went into this game thinking she was Forerunner, but that's obviously not the case. She has a bone to pick with the Forerunners and continually says she wants to bring back the Endless. They're brought up a few times and we're yet to really know if the Harbinger is an Endless or if they're separate things entirely. entirely, although I do think she probably is one of them. Cortana mentions in one of her scenes that
You and I both know that there are worse things than the Flood within this ring.
what on earth could be worse than the Flood? Something locked on this ring. Could it be related to the Precursors, a race of beings that existed prior to the Forerunners? But then again, they were directly related and responsible for the Flood. Is it possible the Forerunners found something else? Something so terrifying they locked it away completely? The Harbinger seemed to want to repair the ring, but in actuality, she seemed to want to repair specifically the Silent Auditorium for the purpose of bringing back the Endless. Now, there are a few audio logs that speak towards a race called the Zalanin. It's not entirely clear if the Endless and Zalanin are the same race, but the Halo wiki seems to think that they are. Reading from their website, we get a little bit more clarity on this. The Silent Auditorium is the facility on Installation 07 in which the Forerunners had enacted judgment upon the Zalanin. The Zalanin could not defend themselves and stood silently as the Forerunners imprisoned them. Despondent Pyre was instructed by the Grand Edict to experiment on the Zalanin to learn the extent of what their kind could endure. Centuries later, thanks to the partial repairs made by the Reformation, the Harbinger was able to access the Silent Auditorium and attempt to open a connection between the Auditorium and an unknown location on the ring by way of carrier wave. The signal itself was noted as being sentient and was searching the ring. The weapon was able to intercept the signal being transmitted from the 3 statues that decorated the central chamber. However, once the Harbinger accessed the third and final transmitter, the weapon noted that a presence on the installation was assisting her as she attempted to intercept it. Ultimately, the Harbinger was able to send a small, strange item to Atriox so she could unlock the Zalanin Silex chamber. After the Harbinger's death, the Silent Auditorium quickly began to break down, but not before a mysterious slip-space stream opened up, sending the Master Chief 3 days into the future. Now this sets up a lot. Why was the signal sentient? Is it in relation to offensive bias? Is there some sort of connection there? Was he helping the Chief? And why? Does this mean the Endless are so terrifying the humans and Forerunners are on the same page here? Why does Atriox want to bring back the Endless, and what could that possibly do for the Banished? And what's with the time jump in the slipspace stream? We know Forerunners like to bend time occasionally, but what exactly was the purpose there? These are all points of speculation, and I really like that they've given us not just a tremendous story, but a trail of breadcrumbs to speculate over. It gives people a lot to talk about and a lot to think about. It's clear the Zalanin can't be killed by the Halos, which is likely why they were locked away by the Forerunners. There's a lot of extra info within Infinite itself, from the legendary ending to the audio logs, and it's exactly the kind of amazing cryptic shit that I adore. If there's one thing 343 has done well since they took over, it's the insane amount of depth to the extended universe and the lore that has also made its way into the games. There's a lot to love, and Infinite taps into some really interesting pieces. If you're interested in knowing more and hearing someone lay it all out, then I'll link this video from Hidden Xperia in the description, where he goes over the full explanation of the legendary ending and the audio logs to form a rough idea of what's happening and where Halo could be going in the future. And I'd be remiss if I were not to talk about the final ending of the game. Not the post-credit scene, but the ending of the overall story. Coming out of a slip-space portal 3 days into the future, Chief and the weapon arrive in a desolate location marked by several stone rings. Upon returning to the pilot and the Pelican, they utter a reference that's definitely earned this time around.
What do we do now?
We finish the fight.
Cheesy as it might be, all things considered. Heading into the cockpit, everyone gets names. The pilot revealed as Fernando Esparza, and the weapon now named the obvious.
What do I call you?
Any ideas?
Well, do you think it would be okay? You're sure?
You get to choose your name.
Then I think I might have the perfect one.
Becoming Cortana rounds off the arc this game told. The growing of friends, the finding of humanity, and the closure of old wounds. Halo Infinite perfectly rounds off what came before while getting ready for what comes next, whether in character terms or plot terms. I loved the entire story from start to finish. I never felt like it missed a beat. The locations may not be as varied as the previous Halo entries, but like I said, it makes up for it with the quality of story being told. Infinite does a lot of things the same way Combat Evolved did, establishing characters and concepts, telling a self-contained story while setting up plenty of questions to be answered down the line. Things are only going to get bigger for Halo Infinite, and the campaign DLC is set to be released in the coming years, and I for one am very much looking forward to it. Halo would not be Halo without multiplayer. Campaign is a huge part of the Halo experience, but the multiplayer is equally so. Alongside the Master Chief and his adventure is a competitive experience to trump most. Halo is my favourite of any on the multiplayer market. I sank plenty of hours into Call of Duty 4, but you best believe I had at least double that in Halo 3. Through 2007 to probably around 2012, I sank countless hours into Halo 3 and Halo Reach multiplayer, and since the launch of the Master Chief Collection, I've done the same there. Despite Halo 5 not really having the spirit of Halo woven into its DNA, I still played a shit ton of that as well, granted nowhere near as much as the Master Chief Collection or previous Halo entries. Halo 4 is the only one I really didn't touch. Something about it never worked for me. It just felt void of the experience I'd come to hold so dearly. And obviously Halo 1 and 2, I was a fetus. I wasn't playing those online at the time. Halo 1 didn't have online. Anyway, the core gameplay of Infinite upholds every single aspect of the old Halo gameplay I loved. For a start, the way sprint is irrelevant almost, yet gives an advantage outside of a speed boost. The real use of sprint is to slide, and using slide effectively takes skill. That idea alone immediately grows the sandbox experience of a Halo multiplayer system. On top of that, the weaponry, the weapon placement, the map design, the time to kill, the one-on-one encounters, it all feels so fundamentally Halo, like nothing I've played since Reach has managed to capture. With the use of equipment similar to Halo 3, it diversifies each match and allows players to work for a reward. Whether it's ducking in for a grapple hook or grabbing the rockets from the center of the map for a large multi-kill, Halo Infinite encourages competitive play in a way that's only really found in Halo. The maps themselves I've found to be probably the best since Reach. Halo 4 and 5 never really had a huge standout for me. Reach had a fair few bangers, but even Reach to me always paled in comparison to Halo 3's maps. Infinite has some really strong ones, both in arena and in big team battle, which is an incredibly nostalgic experience with friends, taking me back to spending those summer nights on Xbox Live Party Chat with mates from close by and all over the world, matchmaking in Halo 3 to play big team battle, winning games, leveling up, and having nothing but unparalleled fun. Halo Infinite's multiplayer isn't without its flaws, however. There are bucket loads. It's just a good thing they're not gameplay related. On that front, things are near perfect. Of course, there could be some tweaks to shot registry and a few weapons introduced, but nothing that can't be adjusted as time goes on. Where the real kicker lies in the content and the progression. They've made some changes as of recently, and I'm sure they'll continue to do so. So everything I'm about to talk about is easily subject to change, and I hope that in a year from now, everything I'm about to say is something you can simply skip over due to it being so awfully outdated. But it would be silly of me in a full critique of the game at launch not to go over these things to at least document how it was at the time. Within their changes, they've added adjustments to the Battle Pass leveling system, allowing for much more XP per game, with that decreasing the more games that you play. On top of that, they've adjusted the event unlocks, meaning now you just have to play one game a day and you get an unlock on the special event Battle Pass, which is much nicer than it was before, with the special challenges woven into your regular ones. They've also tweaked challenges to be less tiresome and RNG based, so it makes play smoother, and they finally added a ton of extra game modes you can search from the main menu, as well as a Slayer playlist for people who just want to shoot shit. That being said, it's still not really up to scratch with the Halo games of old. You can log into the original Halo 3 and find the UI, the selection, the customization, and the leveling system are all better than they are here in Infinite. Now, I'm not saying to entirely alter the Battle Pass system, that's the system they're going for, so that's what we're working with, but it could be a hell of a lot better. For start, we need performance-based XP. That's number one. Let me gain XP based on how well I perform and if my team wins. Every aspect of my play should come into it. And then you also get a bonus for playing, similar to what we see in Halo Reach. Challenges should be bonus XP for completing specific challenges that are tougher than regular play. Also, please let me unlock every challenge at once. I don't want to do 4 at a time. It just means I have to play more and more when maybe I don't want to or don't really have the time. In the Master Chief Collection, I was able to log in for a few hours, grind out all of my challenges, or at least a few of them, then log off and come back later. In Infinite, you can only do 4 at once, so it takes 4 times as long to do them all. There's also no actual leveling system outside of the Battle Pass, no actual rank to compare with friends, which to me is a classic part of the overall Halo experience. There are a fair few game modes I'd still like to see added. It feels pretty bare bones with what we have. To name a few, I'd love to see Team Doubles, Infection, King of the Hill, or VIP. Even something like Driftball would be a nice addition, one of those fun game modes. It feels so strange to see a Halo game launch with such little content in the way of multiplayer modes. There should be so much more here. With game modes also comes how you search for them. With a lack of pre-game lobbies, the UI feels messy. You're just clicking a button and sitting on the main menu waiting for it to load. In older games, even in Master Chief Collection, you choose your combination of game types that you want to search for and the games you'd like to play them in, and then you'd hit search. You'd see a new menu to depict searching, and then you'd see each player join the game. You could check their service record, look at their armor. You feel significantly more locked off from the community in Halo Infinite, and the UI itself is just very dull. Nothing making the game feel alive. It's too minimalist for my liking, although that's personal taste more than objective criticism. Not that anything I've said in this video has been objective, that's not the point. I guess just how the UI of a main menu looks is the most subjective it can get. Customization itself is very limited. A lot of items you can only get from the store, and pieces are locked to armor cores. Seems like a strange choice to not just allow me to fully mix and match armors where I see fit, rather than locking me to specific cores. On top of that, the visors and colors are locked to armor cores too, meaning if I get red for Mark 7, I can't use that on my Heroes of Reach core, which is unnecessary. They're also selling colors that you can get on other cores. The game comes with blue on Mark 7 and the Battle Pass core, but it doesn't come for the Tenrai core. So you can actually buy a color you already have just for a separate armor core. It's absolutely ridiculous. Colors too are now not a system where you can make your own, but a system where they have preset coatings you can pick from, rather than letting me pick my own primary, secondary, and detail colors, which feels like removing a core part of Halo's customization. Another core part is emblems and nameplates, of which they're all now preset things you can select, rather than making your own with shapes and symbols. Everything Halo is here, it just feels like it's lost its heart. And don't get me started on the store. $10 for cat ears? Get the fuck out. This is egregious. I know I don't have to buy anything here, but there's simply no value on display here. Things should be cheaper and should be more store appropriate. Sometimes things appear on the store that should really be part of the Battle Pass. They were selling Reach armor, which this season is focused on, in the store. They pretty much removed it from the Battle Pass to sell as its own item. It's just a mess. Although I have all these complaints, and I am in a way disappointed by the multiplayer in a lot of ways, I still love playing it. And that's really a testament to just how good the core gameplay is, how strong the maps are, the competitive nature of the design. I just really, really wish everything else was up to scratch too. All in all, after the release and after the initial hype, is Halo Infinite all that it's cracked up to be? After a replay, after some time with the multiplayer, and after a while to sit and consider my answer to that, it's yes. Maybe it's even better. When Halo Infinite first launched, I was balls deep into Halo lore. I was reading every novel I could get my hands on. I just replayed every Halo game ready for Infinite. I was streaming the Master Chief Collection multiplayer all the time and playing it even more in my own time. Anything Infinite did probably would have impressed me, no matter what it was. I think I would have enjoyed it on release. The real test is if that hype, that impression it had on me, still holds true weeks to months later. After some time away from Halo as a brand, after not playing Infinite for a while, checking out vastly different games, jumping back into Infinite was a complete joy. Replaying the campaign was never a chore and was only better the second time around. Everything they do, for the most part, I love. The story resonates with me on a better level every time I watch the cutscenes or play the game. The world feels meaningful despite lacking in some areas, but the core gameplay makes up for it by making any skirmish or objective feel genuinely fun. The game could definitely improve on its diversity of environments, its variety of mission objectives, and on its set-piece level design, along with all the multiplayer-related issues I've mentioned, but aside from that, Halo Infinite is a tremendous game that I feel has the potential to achieve the longevity it wants to achieve. Can Halo Infinite go for 10 years? With gameplay this solid and a writing team this good, so long as they don't drop the ball, improve where needed, and don't drop the quality with any future campaign releases, I think it's more than possible that they can go the distance, and I'd love to see them try. I'm usually not a fan of live service games, but if Halo can continue at the quality it has while fixing the most urgent problems, this could be the very first time I enjoy a live service model, and with Halo being a franchise known for making history, I honestly wouldn't be surprised. Thank you all so much for watching this video. I really appreciate it. If you sat through to the end, if you watched it in multiple sittings, whatever it might be, if you're tuning into the premiere, I appreciate you. It's 2022 now. I'm back. We got videos in the pipeline. I got a lot of stuff going on. I'm replaying Metro Exodus as of writing this video. I'm going to do my retrospective on Shadow of War. We got Horizon Forbidden West coming out soon, as well as Elden Ring. I want to make some videos on those. Other retrospectives coming this year include The Witcher 1, Assassin's Creed, the original one, and some other things that I'm thinking of as well. Hopefully I'll be on the ball a bit more when it comes to streaming. I really love streaming, and there's plenty to do, plenty of games to play, plenty of fun to be had. I want to do more big events and stuff like that, and more chill stuff. So follow me on Twitch. The link is down in the description. We do Halo sometimes over there as well, and that's a bit of fun. Don't forget to follow me on my other social media too, to stay up to date on a bunch of other things, and just get involved with me, the community, and have a chat. It's always fun. Instagram and Twitter are linked in the description as well. And a big thank you to everyone supporting on Patreon. The people over there, I can't thank you enough. You help me so much when it comes to creating bigger videos like this by supporting me and backing me. It really does mean a lot. So if you have any interest in showing your support for these bigger videos and for the channel, then Patreon's the place to do it. It's where you can support me, and we get to give back to you with podcasts, exclusive stuff, early videos, all of that stuff. So that's a lot of fun as well. Let me know your thoughts on Halo Infinite in the comment section below, whether it's the multiplayer or the campaign or a bit of both. I'd be very interested to hear opinions from everybody, so be sure to let me know in the comment section down below, and I'll see you all soon for hopefully something new. Obviously, in the meantime, I'll be on Twitch streaming, so you can catch me there, but in terms of stuff on this channel, I'll see you in a couple weeks probably, and we'll be back with another video. Thank you guys so much. Don't forget to drop a like, subscribe, all that shit, and I will see you very, very soon for something new. See you later, guys.